What French have you done?
GCSE, then largely dropped off after that.
Yeah.
One of the developers I deliberately didn't bring up in the already bloated run into this section was DONTNOD, another dev stationed in Paris. And they are most famous for creating the Life is Strange series, as well as exploring storytelling through quite, a few other interesting experiments as well, like Remember Me, which stars friend of the show, Kezia Burrows.
Does indeed.
And Vampire and Tell Me Why. And then DONTNOD shifted gears a little bit in 2023, last year, with a game called Jusant, or Jusant. Jusant, if we're going to do it.
Innit?
If we're going to do it properly, do it properly. Translating this French title, we get Receding Tide. This is thanks to Google Translate, not my aforementioned French GCSE. Jusant takes place on a tremendous, almost completely vertical mountain that we understand to have emerged from the depths of a vast body of water that is now evaporated and parched and barren. And you play a nameless protagonist that arrives at the base of this towering outcrop, and they seem determined to climb to its summit. That's kind of the main setup. In tow, you carry this blue, liquidy creature that kind of sits in a bag on your back and pops out as you start to make your way through the story. Perhaps they are there to restore this place to its previous glory, though 3 hours into the game I haven't yet found my way to the peak to find out, so we'll see. Whereas Life is Strange was a riff on the Telltale-style modern adventure game, Jusant feels like it's explicitly riffing on the world building and aesthetic of something like the Team Eco games, like Eco and Shadow of the Colossus and The Last Guardian. You've got remnants of a previous civilization that are found in the pieces of environmental mise-en-scène and the diary entries and text logs, all that sort of thing. But the real star of the show is just the environment itself and the way in which you interact and traverse up it. For a long time now, climbing in games has followed the Assassin's Creed or Uncharted format, which is just push in the direction you want to go and your character will run up the wall, essentially. Maybe you have to hit jump every now and again to boost up to a higher handhold, but it's very easy going. Jusant is much, much more hands-on and direct. Actually quite similar to Astrobot's monkey power-up, in that you need to use your arms independently to find your grips. You're grabbing with your left and right hands using the respective shoulder triggers. But you're also in control of your guide rope, and you can hammer in pitons along the prolonged climb as well, so that if you miss a handhold or a leap, you don't lose all of your progress, but it's still down to you to have set that checkpoint, as it were. It's still reasonably forgiving, but this is not meant to be a hardcore simulation. But it hands so much more to the player that it makes each little piece of wall conquered still feel like a real achievement. As you're kind of clambering higher and higher, you learn how to get across overhangs. You'll be monkeying hand over hand with no foot support up kind of overcrops, as it were. You need to sometimes let out your rope to allow a big daring swing. You need to kind of abseil down or leap to quickly cross horizontal spaces. There's quite a lot of things you can do with quite a limited palette of tools. What I found interesting playing Jusant was how different it feels compared to DONTNOD's more famous games, because Life is Strange is social and it's chatty and it's wordy, but it's mechanically quite simple, whereas Jusant is wordless outside of written notes, but it's mechanically very dense. Conversation non-existent, and instead this is a game all about the stillness of the space and the echo of every footstep against these undamped or undampened walls and cutaways, and the observation of it all, just planning and executing like a big climb. There's a lot of thought that goes into each little bit that you achieve. I'd honestly say that the text in the little notes and things almost takes away from the beauty of the central concept, because scaling and conquering something so much bigger than yourself is kind of reward enough, I feel. Like I didn't really feel like I needed to know about a previous civilization or who used to live in a cave or anything like that. I just wanted to look at a big cliff and be like, how am I getting up there? It's nice, I guess, that DONTNOD thought about the backstory of the whole place, and perhaps when I get to the top there's going to be a big narrative payoff in some way, but I don't think it needed any of it to be a success. I think it's a good game regardless of these other parts. I often say that the games I enjoy the most are the ones where I can just walk around, and this is essentially that feeling but transplanted going up. You're just walking up a cliff now. The Team Eco influence feels really clear, but I also think this is a game heavily inspired by Breath of the Wild. There's a lot of kind of visual design and kind of just traversal design that I feel comes from Breath of the Wild. And it also reminds me of Lonely Mountains Downhill because of its use of ambient environmental sound, but also the importance of kind of finding your line up as opposed to Lonely Mountains being down. But you're looking at a natural place and you're thinking, how do I get from A to B? By just using kind of my own wiles and using the skills that I picked up playing. I don't think this is a long game, so maybe by next month I'll be able to review it a little bit more fully, but it's a big recommend from me. I've been playing on the Steam Deck naturally, like I do with everything. It looks very nice on the OLED screen, but I think this is actually a really good candidate for a big 4K presentation because it looks gorgeous. You know, the clean lines, the simple colouring, it should scale very well to a big screen, and preferably an OLED screen if you have a big expensive TV. I think this is actually probably the type of thing I should be playing on the PlayStation 5, but just haven't been.
Yeah.
But yeah, great game. Great game. And from DONTNOD, who are French. So France, 1.5 points out of 2, we'll give them.
Yeah. Well done, France.
Yeah.
Bon.
Yeah. And soon, bonne nuit.